Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back with Monsterpocalypse and the Terrasaurs units, the Carnidons and Spikodons. I'll basically be doing one of each on camera. I have a total of 2 blisters worth. So Fire Orange 09006, going with my overall volcano color scheme. Unfortunately, both the Spikodons on both of my blisters had malformed feet, so I had to touch them up with a little sculpting putty, but that's okay. So, these Spikodons are a fairly basic ranged attacker for the Terrasaurs, shooting volleys of spikes from their tails, and they have the explosion ability, allowing them to potentially take out multiple units with each attack. This is mostly resin, a little bit of metal arms on the Carnidons, and 2 of the Spikodons' legs are metal as well. Let's make a nice solid coat of this here. And I'll just have to get the tip of the tail off camera. And the Carnidons, well, they have the dubious honor of being the only model in the first edition that didn't have any special abilities at all, and they so far the only model I've seen so far that doesn't have special abilities in the new edition. What the Grunt Carnidon does have, however, is 2 boost dice base inherent on its brawl attack. Doesn't have a blast. The Elite Carnidon still only has 2 boost dice on its brawl, but it does still have the Commander ability, which means it's going to be pushing the Grunt Carnidons up to 3 dice apiece. And the Elite also has Flank, which puts a defense penalty on enemies within 2 spaces of it. So, well, 2 spaces against brawl attacks anyway. So, that is, despite not having any special abilities on the Grunts, I'd say they've got plenty to make them an attractive option. So I'm going to get a nice solid coat on the orange here. Come back in and get the mouths a little bit later on. And yeah, I am doing the bottom of the feet for now. I'm going to do the bottom of the feet through the shading. I'm thinking maybe I should have used a larger brush, but that's okay. I'm using a little more water than I normally would, but typically you want just enough water on your brush to thin the paints. Okay. That's a start. I'll try to get the inside of the arm, so I'm going to apply that to the rest and finish up the tails off camera and come back and do a new color. Okay. Next, Shield Brown 09161. Again, I'm kind of going for a volcano color scheme. And I'm getting the underbelly scales with this, and just the underbelly. The Carnidons are kind of like a juvenile version of Terracon, or possibly a dwarf species of that massive monster, but again, pretty much straight up No frills of brawlers that happen to be very good at brawling. I don't think there's anything. Well, no, I take that back. Actually, the hunter from the Martian Menace has 2, possibly more boost dice on his attack, but it also can't participate in combined attacks like the Carnidons can, and it has other abilities. So, a little bit of the orange. I'm just going to use some water to thin that out. Alright, apply to the rest and I can move on. Alright, that brown's drying, but I can still get some mouths with deep red 09002. And using a smaller brush for this one. And there's a Carnidon. Yeah, in retrospect, I probably should have done this before I did the orange. And there's Spikodon. Apply that to the rest, and as soon as the brown's dry, actually, I can move on to the last base coat. Alright, last base coat, Cloudy Gray 09089. Get a little more than that. So again, I'm using just enough water to thin the paint, keeping the brush moist but not overly wet. And here, teeth. The Spikodon's teeth are not as prominent, but claws. Okay, and I'll pick out these little ones on the chin, which Armadax and Terracon have as well. Got a big one here. It's going to be picking out all these spines. So they are. So again, this is the second edition of Monsterpocalypse, and they are playing around with the units. There are 2 monsters for the Terrasaurs that are from the original game that are not in the current version yet, which would be Rakadon, who appeared in the same series as Pterodax, which is in the game. And Rakadon was based off of Armadax's body sculpt, a cost-saving measure. So it would not surprise me. I'm assuming they will put those all the monsters from the original game in. So, but with Armadax or Rakadon, it would not surprise me if they do some radical alteration on his body. And but the units they have already played around with, and there are some that I don't think are going to make it into the game. most of the Terrasaurs have actually been included already, unit-wise. But the Green Fury van, which has been reimagined as the scrapper van for the Green Fury, was originally part of the Terrasaurs faction. Now it's a faction in its own right. I just realized I said that in about the most awkward way possible. But there was also a Spikosaur in the original game that sort of acted as a mobile hazard. But we will see. But there are definitely some rules differences. But rambled a bit. The second monster in the Terrasaurs that so far isn't in second edition Monpoc is Tyrannix, which was their metamorph, or monsters that started to play as a bunch of unit-sized mini monsters called morphers that combined, for lack of a better word, into a big one. In the case of Tyrannix, the morphers were the Green Fury truckers, one of which was carrying a big egg which Tyrannix would hatch out of, and it had equal parts Tyrannosaur, Styracosaur, and Stegosaur. But I don't particularly expect the Green Fury truckers to show up, but I do expect Tyrannix to show up eventually. I think Privateer's going to play around with some of the other factions, and first for a bit before they touch up on their main six, which would be Terrasaurs, Guard, Shadow Sun Syndicate, Martian Menace, Words of Cathal, and Planet Eaters. Okay, there we go. That took a bit. Now on one of the Carnidons. These are more prominent here. And there's this one. And more of these chin horns here. Might have a bit too much water in there right now. This definitely looks like it's meant to be a sort of tooth as well. Yeah, that was a lot of rambling there for a minute. So, first wave of Monsterpocalypse were the factions I just mentioned. Terrasaurs, Guard, Shadow Sun Syndicate, Martian Menace, Planet Eaters, and Words of Cathal. Second block of factions, wave of factions, were Elemental Champions, Ubercorp International, Savage Swarm, Subterran Uprising, Tritons, and Empire of the Apes. And the Green Fury, Necro Scourge, the Waste, Draken Armada, and now the Zerkalo block are new factions for this edition. Okay. And there are promises of more, because during a video where they previewed Skulls for Zerkalo block and Draken Armada, they also showed off a lion-headed monster with a bunch of banners around that said classified. My best guesses are it's either going to be a representative of a new faction or possibly a new Green Fury monster. Those are my best guesses. We'll just see. Purpose of even posting something like that is solely to draw speculation and attention, so there you have it. I'm just about done here. I maybe could have switched to the larger brush for the back ridges. I'm just going to roll with it right this second. Got a little too much water right there. Balance out with a little more paint. Okay. Apply to the rest, let it dry completely, and then I can start shading. Alright, time to shade. Stormy Gray 0988. I sound out of breath is because the forest fires in my area are getting really bad again today. A lot of smoke, and I'm well away from it, so it's going to be even worse for people that are much closer than I am. But between the fires and the pandemic, I am sorely tempted to get a gas mask. So 1 part water to 1 part paint, thinning it into a wash. I'm just gonna go over the gray here, trying my best to avoid the other colors, especially the tongue, but you know what, it's gonna do what's gonna do. So this is the one that was missing a foot, so the replacement job isn't my best, but it isn't my worst either. I'm just dabbing this over the gray. I'm just really out of breath right now from a bad coughing fit a little earlier, which again is all the smoke. And I am shaking. It's because my respiratory system's been through hell this morning. Okay, now for a Carnidon. Keeping the brush nice and wet during all this. I'm gonna grip him by the tip of the tail here and switch to a bigger one for the spines on the back. For the sake of alacrity. You'll notice I'm using the entire side of the brush. I'm also getting up underneath the plates here. Okay. Apply that to the rest and let it all dry up completely, and then I can move on. Alright. Okay. Okay. Red brick 09001. Thin that out. go. And now on a Spikodon. There we go. Apply to the rest and come back in a minute. Alright. Woodstain Brown 09160. I can get the underbellies while the interior of the mouth is drying, and that'll leave just one more shade. This is about cash, but I think I've got enough to do what I need to do. And it's only the Carnidons that have this plating on their underbelly. Spikodon is low to the ground. Just gonna go over that real quick. Sounds like the groundskeeping crew is out there again, and there we go. Booger on the tail there. Alright, apply that to the rest. When it's all dried up, I can do the last shading. Alright, so now I'm going to prep the elite bases. I like to keep these bases in the wrap until the last possible second. Brush on primer 09108. Although any brush on primer will do just fine. And using that tiny brush with a fair bit of water, I'm just going to get that in there and just fill in the star. This will help make it stand out more. I'm going to set that aside, far away from where the paint's going to be flying, get the other one unwrapped. So I'll have two elite Carnidons. That's how I'm done here. And dust. I'm doing this because I feel the elite bases, the stars, they don't stand out quite enough, I feel. Just a personal thing, not really what I would call a gripe either. It's just, alright, Phoenix Red 09005. Wouldn't call it a gripe, it's just something I do to help it stand out more. This is going to be the last shading. So, excuse me, what I'm going to do on these Spikodons is, I can't get all of it at once, so I'll get the bulk of it now, and then finish up the tail once I can get a decent grip. So, and once this is dried up, so I'm just going to carefully just kind of dab that in between the barbs and on the back and let that flow around. I'm going to soak this a little more. So, Spikodon was one of the original units from the first set of Monsterpocalypse in first edition, and its role hasn't changed, nor has its explosion special ability. However, it was tiny compared to what it looks like now. It was maybe half the size of this model in the first edition. Bases were a little smaller too, actually. And while I was going for a volcano theme with my Terrasaurs, I realized after the fact that this is actually pretty close. This color scheme is actually pretty close also to some just cheap plastic dinosaurs I had when I was a kid. Nothing too elaborate, just something I remember. Okay, that's good enough for that one. I'm going to set them aside here and do a Carnidon. I got a better place to grip here on the back, so just let's see if I'm focused. Oh, well, that all conked out on me. Alright, there we go. So face. Trying to keep away from the horns on the chin there. Go on down the hands, avoiding the claws. Carefully getting the palm. I want to get that for certain. That is the whole arm, I think. Not quite. Keeping the brush nice and wet during all this. I get one limb at a time here. Might not be quite thin enough right there, but also bleed onto the belly a bit, but that's okay. It'll help sell the volcano illusion. There's a little bit of that red seeping into the other colors. Worked on Armidex, worked on Terrasaurs, so it'll work here too. Well, there. Okay. Get the button there. Alright. Apply that to the rest and get the tip of the Spikodon tails when I get the chance, and then I can get the eyes and go to highlighting and detailing. So back in a bit. Alright. Prepping some eyes now with matte white. That should be plenty. So these are going to get a lighting effect in them. So using just enough water to thin the paint. Just going to dab that in careful like. Now picking out a Carnidon. Apply the rest, let it dry, and then move on. Alright, do some eyes now. Leaf green 09011. Thin that out with 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint. This brush actually. Generally speaking, the trick with this is to leave some of the white showing, though works better on larger models than smaller ones. Okay. Apply to the rest and move on. Alright, now Blood Red 09003. While the eyes are drying, I'll do this. I'm not so much doing a lighting effect this time, but I am doing it as kind of a wash to help fill this in proper, so just thin that out about 1 to 1 roughly. Just let it flow in there. That'll make that stand out nice and pretty. Alright, take care of the other one, let it all dry up and move on. Alright, time to highlight now. Marigold Yellow 09007. Switching to a dry brushing technique. Actually, no, not this yet. First, Blood Red 09003 to get the interior of the mouths, then the scales. So, blood red. Let's see, ragged feathered brush, something along the lines of that. Straight paint, no water. Rub most of it on the paper towel till it looks like there's nothing left. Does the area to be affected. And on a Carnidon. Mostly I want to get the tongue here. Okay. Do that to the rest and come back in a minute. Okay. Now Marigold Yellow 09007. I'm not going to worry about the underside of the Spikodons so much. In fact, I'm not even going to worry too much about the backs so much as the head and sides here. So lightly dusting, going against any raised areas and ridges. Refreshing my paint as needed. Okay. Now for a Carnidon. Focusing on the most readily visible areas, so okay. Apply to the rest and move on. Alright, Driftwood Brown 09162. Since this is more visible, I will give some attention to the underbelly armor here. That'll do. Apply to the rest and move on. I've just got 2 left, I think. Alright. Next, I'm going to take Leaf Green 09011 again and do some highlights on 2 of these. It'll be the elites here. And this is just going to go on the backs of these 2. Okay, apply to the other one and then move on. Alright, last highlight, Misty Gray 09090. I'm going to use 2 different brushes here. I need a fair bit of this. First, I'm going to use a smaller one. I'll just switch between the 2 here on camera and just get the claws and teeth. Then use a larger one to get the bulk of it and just pick out these spines on the back here. Here we go. And now on a Carnidon, I'll just separate up the big and out. And there's a difference between the grunt and the elite here. Now I'll use the little one and get Ward's teeth. Just a little bit. Okay, apply that to all the rest, and then I can glue them to their bases. Alright, time to get these guys glued on their bases now. Using a thick cyanoacrylate super glue. Just a tiny little dot on each foot. And this is one of the elite Carnidons, so taking the base and getting in position just how I want it. Hold that down for about 10, 20 seconds or so. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's got that one. I like to, again, as I said before, I like to keep these in their protective covering until the last minute. And be careful, this is the stuff that will glue your hand shut in a very literal way. Alright, need to apply to the rest, but that is it. Elite and Grunt Carnidons and Spikodons. Got one more Monsterpocalypse video up next, and then I'll be taking a little break. When I come back, it's either going to be Transformers Deep Cuts or Warcasts from Air Mechanica, but until next time, I am Ian Stuckey with the Mastermind Games signing out.